marketing at Le Site, so focusing on inbound marketing strategy to create value. As for our guest presenter today, we have Brian Williams. He's our Magento expert and business development manager at Le Site. With 20 years of experience in web, digital platform, and B2B e-commerce, Brian is our go-to person when it involves helping clients lead complex digital implementation projects to success. And as our second guest speaker, we have Alaa Hassan. He's our vice president and digital commerce and head of digital commerce and growth at Le Site. He's been in the e-commerce industry since the beginning and has helped brands and retailers build 8-figure e-commerce businesses. So you're really in good hands today. For those who might not know us, we are Le Site. So we've been in business for over 13 years with diverse expertise both in B2B and B2C sector. We also have a great expertise in Magento technology. That's why we're hosting the webinar today. We have clients in different industries as well, from construction to fashion or healthcare, for example. We also believe that one of our biggest assets is our team members, because we're a group of passionate and curious individuals. So we're not just about nice words, we're achievers because we truly care in the things that we do for our clients because we're dedicated and passionate. In terms of services, we offer the full spectrum of digital commerce services, from strategy, design, development, Magento development, digital marketing, optimization, training, and as well advising. So without further ado, I will pass things over to Brian and Alaa.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Right on time. So great introduction. Thank you very much, Genevieve. So today's session is really focused around, obviously, the topic of e-commerce, but nowadays, other than dealing with the pandemic, there is another major trend in e-commerce that has some interest in the Magento platform. And nowadays, there is a lot of talk about the fact that Magento 1 is end of life right now. Brian? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's in July. Yeah. In July.
Exactly. So this month we figured why not tackle this topic about migrating to Magento 2, because a lot of clients are coming to us with the need of upgrading their current infrastructure, because obviously you don't want to increase your risks if you're still running on Magento 1. So we figured why not go at it where we answer the top 5 questions that people have about a migration to Magento 2. And we figured, you know what, let's call the expert on our team, which is Brian. He's been dealing with migrations for a very long time, and he's been working hand in hand with a lot of our clients, B2C, B2B, small, medium, large companies. So I figured, you know what, he's the best person to bring on this session to answer some of the questions that you may have about migrating to Magento 2. And if you're still just considering an e-commerce platform, how could Magento 2 help you at the same time? So we're going to try to make sure that you get the most value out of this session by answering these questions. And what he is going to share a lot of his own experience, insights, as well as examples that Le Site has implemented in the last couple of years when it comes to a migration. Yep. So ready, Brian?
I am.
Excellent. So the first question that we get a lot at Le Site is, what are the impacts of staying on Magento 1? And why should I migrate to Magento 2? So this question may sound very simple, but right now we're at a stage where it's crucial for brands, retailers, companies in general to upgrade. So Brian, tell us, what are the impacts and why should people migrate?
Yeah, thanks for that intro, Jen. That's great. And thanks for everybody for showing up today. And I think we're going to cover quite a few topics. We're going to dive in as much as we can in the time frame, but you know, a big thing to remember is that, you know, we're always available to continue the conversations after this. To kind of follow what Alaa was saying, you know, Magento's been around for a really long time. You know, and there's a lot of customers out there who are on Magento 1. And with any software, you're looking at end of life. And Magento right now, as of July, will be retiring Magento 1. And some things to really consider on that front is the security factor. You know, with any software, for any provider, security is critical. There's a lot of vulnerabilities, issues that you'll run into, but with the end of life, security updates will not be available for your platform, be it open source, you know, it used to be called community, back in the Magento 1 days, and commerce/enterprise. In order to keep your site up and running, you really need to factor from a customer standpoint, trustworthy. With these vulnerabilities that are out there, Magento is consistently and always going to be updating and looking for your best interest. A lot of these tools that are there, preventive measures for vulnerabilities for your sites. A big factor that we look at as well is the core basis behind Magento is PHP. That now is 2 versions behind. That's also reached end of life. A new version is coming out, version 8. I think maybe later this year. Being that it's the core of your platform, it powers all interactions in the code base. It's critical. You absolutely need to be looking at upgrading your site across the board. And as with Magento 2, you have to upgrade your PHP to 7 and above. The biggest factor here is your customers. At the end of the day, it's mitigating the risk. You don't want to have an experience where there's a data breach, etc. Further to that, with Magento 2, they're offering additional tools, be it reCAPTCHA, 2-step factor authentication, cache management. The end of the goal for you as a merchant is to provide revenue and not have to worry about some of these things for your customers.
So from what you're saying is really, it's not just a matter of the technical issues or challenges that they may face, whether it's just security or payments and all that stuff. It's really, they're getting a lot more on a Magento 2 platform in terms of front-end experience for, let's say, if people come to your website, are they experiencing something different, or is it really a lot of the features are more on the back-end side?
Yeah, so we can dive into a bit of that. I think if I just want to, the other side of this from a payment processing standpoint, you need to be PCI compliant, and that's with your provider, with Visa or PayPal. If you're not upgrading your site, you're not going to have transactions. We talk about that. The sites will still work, but if your payment processor is not taking payments, you're not going to be able to transact, and it's just going to leave a bad experience all around. As to the overall infrastructure, it's a total reframework from Magento 1 to Magento 2. You're looking at just overall performance, faster out of the box right away. They totally reworked from the ground up. Some things that we look at as far as, bad experiences, page loads, times, issues, interaction from the server side. Magento has done a great job with DB sharding, index performance upgrades, parallel processing, just reduces the overall index time significantly. We are typically seeing a 60% increase of speed, page loads, etc., and just site updates for products and pricing. In the end, this is going to save your team a lot of time and effort from a workload perspective. Really benefiting speed to market, and that's always critical. You want updates, you want prices updated, you want to have that real-time interaction. Some of the other stats that we've seen, just the response time in general is upwards of over 80% interaction-wise on just different aspects, be it certain accounts for checkout. What you're really looking at then is a decrease in bounce rate or people leaving your website. We've seen an increase of over 20%. Equates then again to 80+% of increase of page sessions and time on the site. In the end, that's conversion. All of our customers are looking at least a 50% increase on mobile alone and conversions.
And it's interesting you bring up those. The overall impact is felt across your whole business. It's not just back-end efficiency or features on the front end. Really, there's a lot of things that improve on the platform. I mean, just thinking about what you mentioned right now, if the website loads faster, it's a lot more friendlier on mobile. Your performance is no longer an issue. You're talking to me about indexing. I mean, this could potentially impact your SEO rankings, and your organic traffic in the future can start increasing. So your return on investment may not be felt immediately, both in the short term and in the long term. And sometimes without you just doing any additional work, it's just automatic because you're on a more stable performing platform going forward. So very interesting.
Yeah. So, a couple of the other features that I think are very important for clients to be aware of, and some things that they've had problems with in the past, you're able to handle a lot larger SKU count or products in general, and configurations on the replatform. Like, as you mentioned, the redesign for mobile, responsive design is taken leaps and bounds, which really wasn't available in Magento 1. You know, to be able to facilitate faster content updates and easier, you know, and I'll touch a bit about that in a little bit, but improve search, Elasticsearch now, and SEO features, as you mentioned, you know, they're already pre-built into the system, and it's just going to help enable your customers get to you faster, find the right products, and transact. You know, big factor that they retweaked Magento across the board was the checkout itself, and APIs. The checkout, as we've seen over a course, you know, Magento has now gone into a one-step or a two-step checkout, if you want to think of it in that sense. Improves that transaction, and impulse buyers are able to transact a lot faster. You know, you're looking at adding different CTAs, upsells, cross-sells, you know, everything that can drive and make that seamless so that it's a click, click, checkout, and you're done. You know, there's just proven stats across the board about the improvements from simplifying that you know, hindrance for clients to be able to check out with you. Personalization, you know, that's it. You know, one click, purchase, product, done, and you're transacting.
I see a great advantage for people. I mean, at this point, it's not just upgrading to a better version. You're really improving the whole shopping experience for your customers and improving efficiency across the board. So it's not just a number 1 to 2. There's no number there.
Yeah, exactly. The APIs is something else that, you know, I wanted to make sure that we talked about today. You know, Magento's done a great job of enhancing the connectivity with the back end, opening up access points. So from a connection standpoint, you're not inhibited. There's some platforms out there that, you know, are legacy in a sense, and you need to be able to, you know, work with the new framework, and the APIs will facilitate that. You know, further to that, if it comes into a situation where, you know, the API maybe not the best course and you're looking for an extension, Magento's done a fantastic job of reworking the overall extension ecosystem. You know, it's tried and true. It's not necessarily, you know, it's still open source, but in a sense, it's regulated, and, you know, the options that are out there are segmented so that they will work with Magento too. And a lot of times you're looking at these upgrade processes. Does that provider or will that extension still work with the new framework, right? The end goal is always to be flexible, extendable, and scalable, right? And affordable. And there's products out there and extensions that we use that can facilitate some of these features that you're looking to put into the system.
It's interesting that you talk about API, because obviously if when people come to us at the state, we're dealing with growth challenges, and you want to make sure one part is taking care of your technology to make sure that it integrates really well with the rest of your ecosystem. The biggest problems I've seen is the fact that there are certain shopping cart solutions that clients are using are sometimes limited. And that's where the API and the flexibility when it comes to integrating with other tools is critical at this point, especially if you're looking at scale. Let's face it, we're not always relying on one piece of technology. We need to make sure that the technology that's going to power our commerce initiatives, it integrates easily with everything else that we have, whether it's an ERP system, your customer service, your CRM, you name it. So, I mean, it's nice to see that obviously the API has also been improved going forward.
And we'll touch on some of those topics as we go through.
Well, I mean, it's a nice segue into the next question, because the next question that people constantly ask us is, well, it's great. Now I know I need to move to Magento 2, but what version of Magento 2 should I be considering? Costs associated, things like that. So from your experience, I mean, what are the different versions that a business should look at, and why should they look at one version over another, and what are some of the things that they should consider when choosing the right one for their business?
The benefit that you have, you know, with Magento, and it comes in multiple flavors. You know, as I touched on briefly earlier, the versions were community. That's been upgraded now. It's called open source, which is kind of the free version of Magento. You have also commerce now, which used to be enterprise. And I'm throwing that out because if people are looking at this, you know, the terminology has changed quite a bit. And there's another factor to consider is Commerce Cloud. And that's a service provided by Magento where, you know, they will host the infrastructure for you. And they're really going to be looking at, you know, they're monitoring the SLAs and the uptimes and then improvements that are going to automatically get taken into consideration. There's lots of options out there. We work with a lot of different providers. For us, in a sense, you know, the version that you're going to choose is the version that's best for you. And that's where we're going to help you. If we're talking about the versions themselves, they come, you know, a different scale in a sense of, you know, from a licensing perspective, there are different tools. One, you know, a couple of items that are kind of with B2C and B2B, people are going to look at, you know, PWA, which is a progressive web app, is a new offering from Magento, and it works on any of the versions. You know, think of it as an infrastructure where your offline mobile will still work, and it's considered semi-app in a sense where, you know, the site launches faster, speed. That's a tool that's out available to all providers. We've actually launched a few customers on that as well. Page Builder, it's something that, you know, Magento in the past, from Magento 1, didn't necessarily have the capability from a content management or marketing perspective. You know, the admin in the sense, and the GUI has been updated. It's really drag and drop. You don't necessarily need to know HTML and CSS to be able to update content pages and put them out into the market. You know, I'm just going to go through a couple other tools that I like specifically. You know, multi-source inventory tool, which allows you to be able to manage your inventory. And that's something that's, you know, is critical for a lot of retailers. You're talking omni-channel and you have multiple sources. Being able to manage the inventory levels, quantities across, and be able to manage that and source and which products are going to be available to sell online. And that even goes even further into like shipment, fulfillment, et cetera.
But when you talk about these features here, are they specific to the community edition, the open source edition on Magento 2, or is it across all versions?
So there's a couple of items that are specific to commerce and B2C, okay, and versus the open source. You know, you're going to have to do your research, and we'll talk a bit about this later. You know, what version is best for you? There's so many add-ons and so many, you know, updates that have been provided, but there is some differences, obviously, between commerce and open source. You know, one thing that, you know, that they both have in common is the admin is been just totally reworked. The interface and the GUI and the UX side of things, if it's for product updates, it's been realigned completely, and it's really a drag and drop focus. You know, they've moved certain sections, make sense as far as, you know, pages, blocks, widgets on the content section, emails, templates moved into the marketing section. You know, products, speed in general, which is across all the versions, you know, just quicker, faster way to be able to get your product update on the version. So, you know, a difference for merchandisers, an example for commerce, is a virtual merchandiser. It's a drag and drop scenario where you can take your products, drag them into the catalog, and that really speeds up efficiency across the board.
Of course, you save time. I mean,
yep.
You think about it nowadays, especially when you're, let's say, I know that we've worked a lot with B2B clients, but in the B2C world right now, especially when you look at retail, when you have so many different campaigns going on, you really need to have a system that's going to help you move fast in terms of preparing these campaigns, whether it's landing pages, you're talking about Page Builder, building out landing pages for specific campaigns, merchandising certain categories based on the promotions that you have going on. I remember that it's usually sometimes a lot of work to set up these areas on the website, but now with the new version, all of these things are streamlined that anyone on your team can do it. Do you feel that the new version is also improving the learning curve, whether it's our staff? Do you need additional training from your staff, or is it really just like as Magento 1, it's just easier and better to use?
You know, Magento has done a great job as well. There's, you know, besides picking the right partner, which we'll talk on a little bit later, these new tools, they're new tools, and there will be training involved, and there will be, you know, time that has to focus on that. But, you know, from the world of your business, in a sense, the logic is there to improve what you're already trying to do. So the learning curve, it's not on, like I say, when I talk about the actual interface itself, it's very user friendly, and that's something, you know, from a team perspective. If you already use Magento, you already understand products, you already understand categories, and all these things. You know, when we started looking at some of the additional features, you know, as far as, you know, gift cards and loyalty and stuff like this, there's some learning, obviously, but, you know, the documentation that's out there from Magento is fantastic. Magento also has a Magento University training program, which is
that's good,
really good. That helps teams get up and running. And then, you know, working with your partner, you can, you know, build on top of that. As you mentioned, the B2B, the commerce version comes with the B2B feature set. And we've seen some significant improvements from interactions with clients and just speed for transaction. Your autonomy of being able to have companies manage their own team members from roles, permissions, the quote engine, which comes in it, separated or shared catalogs, a quick order requisition list for replenishment, company credit. The goal is to interact with your team, your sales team, and really be able to have that seamless, take away some of that hindrance from interacting with you and purchasing.
I mean, that's why choosing the right version is critical. And one thing that we also get asked a lot whenever we deal with any migration projects is, so I have a website right now, it's running on Magento 1, everything is good, it's running, we know that it's generating the sales, performance, everything is good, but now we need to migrate. We've always thought about, let's say, some brands may think about, you know what, since we're migrating, why not implement a new design, maybe a nice refresh. Now, the question to you is, based on your experience and what you've seen with previous clients, do you recommend redesigning the whole store? Since we're going to a Magento 2 platform, should we just redesign the whole store? Or should we use the current design that we have, migrate, and then start making changes? What are some of your recommendations with regards to that?
So you have a couple of different options. Magento in general is a theme based. You can get some of these new upgraded themes that come like Alaa. There's also service providers out there that provide a theme in a sense of a structure for the individual pages, your home page, your product page, your My Account. You can leverage that, and it's an opportunity. You change, the brand guide in a sense, the font. You'll match it. You'll save time in that sense. And really the goal is if you're looking to rebrand the site, you're automatically going to upgrade it. But then you also have the custom build, and you've got to weigh that in. Are you going to completely customize the site, which you are able to? You can customize any part of the Magento front end seamlessly and easily. But then that ties into a time factor, a budget factor, and the resources. So this is this constant scenario of feature set versus goal versus we'll talk a little bit on what's the best avenue to get the most impact, and time is critical for a lot of customers right now. So there's options out there that we can put the new site up and then look at a full redesign. The end goal is really about expressing your brand authority, your expertise. That goes into helping your products understand about your catalog, the product in general, offering videos. So, there's ways that you can redesign the site with content, not necessarily having to restructure every single page. But, the end goal is always, from a interaction client is UX and the UI. How easily can that different user journey get the information and transact? You really want to take less is more approach, I think, in that scenario.
And that's what I like about, the way you work with our clients right now is the fact that there is no right or wrong answer. It really depends on their situation, where they're at in their journey in terms of growth as a company, in terms of their e-commerce division, where it's at. And the time factor is critical. So obviously, if you want to redesign a whole website, you got to factor in the time it will take because you're now touching all these different areas of the website. That's one thing. Now, there's the other part that I usually work with our clients is the analysis and discovery and conversion optimization. When it comes to growth, it's not just a matter of let's spend more money on ads. Let's just spend more money on traffic. Let's drive more traffic and we're going to grow the business. There are certain things that will have an impact on your growth, mainly the things on your website. So before you think about redesigning a full website, you really need to spend some time gathering information about what are users currently doing on the website? What are they dealing with in terms of friction? Are there areas of the website affecting the shopping experience? Are there any bottlenecks faced by your users? So don't just start redesigning the homepage because the boss says so. Don't start redesigning the page because the branding department says so, or the marketing feels like, it doesn't look professional. Use data to help you understand what are users currently experiencing on the website, because from there, you'll be able to prioritize quick wins that can potentially help you increase conversions when you upgrade and avoid having to fully redesign something that's already working. Or if you decide to go the redesign route, which is there's nothing wrong with it, you're going to be spending a lot of time and money on this. So before doing so, it makes sense for you to gather a lot of both qualitative and quantitative reports. So you go in your Google Analytics, you see what's happening. You also run these click maps, heat maps. You try to gather all this data. You speak to your customer service team. You speak to your customers. You survey all these stakeholders, and you try to gather all this info to see whether or not should you be upgrading or redesigning the full website, parts of the website. But by doing so, you'll be able to prioritize certain elements of the shopping experience, and eventually you start putting money where it will matter most. Now, to Brian's point, obviously, if time is of an essence to you and you really don't want to delay things, then you can put these things as step 2 of the whole migration process, but at least gather some data so that you can make better decisions as to where should you be investing. But again, it's a lot more risks. If you redesign, then you're dealing, it's more time, right? It's just, it has a bigger impact. And a lot of people are involved in the design process. So now it's even a lot longer.
Yeah, we've seen some great success with, we have a full design team in-house, and they're UX, UI experts. And we've made, that's some, I like to think of it as elegance and simplicity. It is what critical is for clients to be thinking about. And our team is there to guide, and that ties in with, picking the right partner. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things you need to be aware of, but having those extra team members and services, not just about putting up a website. There's a lot of moving parts.
Exactly.
This is the opportunity for you to be thinking about these things, for sure.
Excellent. So let's move on to some case studies.
Yep.
I'm sure the attendees want to hear some examples as to what clients have we worked with, because it's not just about sharing some of our clients that we worked with, it's more of what have we done for them. So can you share some examples of clients that you've worked with in the past that were running different versions of Magento? And also they might be in different categories, and what's the approach that we went with regards to the migration? So.
Yeah. A great actually segue into that, because there's a lot of different businesses out there and a lot of different verticals, and something that we're looking at, and I can kind of start with Moose Knuckles, which is a B2C retailer. They had a hard, you want to call it, deadline, in the sense of migrating from their initial Magento 1. They went on a Magento cloud aspect, and they were looking at meeting a deadline to get launched on a Black Friday. So, we launched a website. It's not unheard of. Teams will go do this, and
it's a big risk.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a new platform, but they trusted us, and we delivered on that, and we turned the implementation around from start to finish in 4 months. And so. Wow. We're very proud of that, but they had to take some concessions, and when you're looking at a rebrand or a redesign, we spent time up front, but as we're progressing now and the site's been up and they're seeing substantial revenue increases just over across the board, we're now looking at redesigning elements of the site and how that works with clients. So that's the cloud perspective. Uptime, scalability, these were things that were important to them at the time, and now we're going to grow the site from there. Another client that I've worked with, and we've seen some significant strides from where they were in Magento 1, is a company called Questmark Flooring. They're out of the US. They have multiple locations and vendors and brands. They do a B2B and a B2C world, but they had a lot of legacy pages, a lot of pages scattered, and the whole goal was to bring everything together, and like I say, bring it so that the presentation was a strong visual presence about the brand. You use a lot of videos, they use a lot of product portfolio, snapshots of before and after, but really it's they had a lot of moving parts. They had a large sales team who used the site to interact, and they took leverage of live chat and customer forms. When you have a large company, corporate entity, when they have multiple different divisions, you need to make sure that the right people are getting in contact with the right people. And so they've done a great job of from a visual and an imagery standpoint, the videos, really showcasing the brand and their knowledge and their expertise. You know, a big factor for those and teams to be looking at, and definitely, you know, it's something that's critical for a lot is the integration points. And they had an SAP backend. You know, we work with a lot of different integration points in ERPs because that's really the driver, and making sure that data and the transactions and the orders and the contacts are up to date. So we've seen some, they've seen some significant updates for that. If we're looking at, you know, they're on a commerce perspective, I have another client, Hoosier Crane, and they went with the open source version. They are a B2B and a B2B, a B2C offering to their clients. Again, it was a rebrand, you know, very interactive with the site. They're very content heavy. And if you talk about cranes, you know, it's not something that, you know, you just going off the shelf necessarily and buy. So they have a lot of data sheets, a lot of data information, a lot of videos in regard to them, a lot of product. But, you know, they didn't necessarily need all of the commerce features. So they went into the marketplace and leveraged a quote module. And that's been, you know, something that they use the most. So they didn't necessarily need all the extra features that go along with it. So there's ways around that you can, you know, if you're looking just to upgrade your site and you need some extensions, but you don't necessarily need all the features that you're going to use.
But I like this. I mean, you look at Moose Knuckles, B2C, retail, brand. You look at Questmark, B2B, Who's Your Crane, B2B, B2C, and you're seeing all these different versions of Magento being able to cater towards each of these companies. And also the fact that it's so flexible, whether you want to go with a full redesign or a fast rollout, or you just want to upgrade or literally just use some of the features. That's the whole point. I mean, if I you know what, when I started working more with Magento type of clients, I started seeing really the powerfulness of this platform, and with regards to customizing the shopping experience or the web experience to meet the needs of your customers, but also as a business. It's not like, that's what it is, go with it. You can really customize every aspect of it.
And I think that's critical, right? Not every business necessarily needs all, you know, tools, and there's many different types of businesses, and in being able to cater the software to their needs, I think is critical.
So based on that, obviously we've been talking a lot about the different challenge, the different features, things to consider, the different businesses that Magento platform can cater to. From your experience, if I am thinking about migrating to Magento 2 from Magento 1, whichever version of it. So I'm not talking about a specific version. What are the common challenges that usually we face during a migration, and how can we plan for them? Because obviously it's one thing to say, we're going to upgrade, beautiful website, but how can we plan to ensure that the project goes smooth, we're within budget, we launch and we're not having any hiccups, and so on and so forth. At the same time, not impact our customers, because that's critical. We got to continue making money online. So what are some of the challenges that we should consider and how to plan for them?
Something that we always talk about is, you know, even if you're going through this process of change, everyone still has a day-to-day job. They still have a website. They still have to do their job and then have to put this on top of, you know, the evolution of their workday in a sense. And, you know, it's difficult to kind of, you know, put that out there, but it's really, you know, a lot of companies underestimate the, you know, the magnitude in a sense of the process change for the better. Don't get me wrong. It's not a question of that. But there's typically resistance, you know, there's always resistance to change, and customers and clients and people are like this, you know?
Not tied to Magento, it's just business.
Yeah, no, in general. So, you know, that's something that, you know, when we engage, you can have the best software, you can have the best platform, but it's really the fact of the company getting behind this, and it's a process change, and the team's going to need time to spend on training, understanding, you know, differences in how they were doing things for the better. The goal is always to improve their day-to-day work, to make their lives easier. You know, and if you can get people on board, and I like to joke around in the sense of, you know, get people excited, get the team excited about this. This is, you're only benefiting their jobs and making their jobs easier and more efficient. You know, and if you plan that from the get-go, and it's really, it's that mantra internally that we're moving through this, we're going to have the processes. You know, a lot of companies that we work with, necessarily in B2B in a sense, is the salespeople. You've got to, you know, you're offering new tools. A lot of times these tools are you know, new, and it takes a little learning curve. But if you can get the sales team behind it, you make it seamless, they're only in the end, it's only going to generate more and more revenue for the company.
It's a growth mindset. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're upgrading because you need to grow, you can't stay at the same level, and your business is always going to change. So this growth mindset it's not Magento that's going to put it in place. It's not your partner. It's really internally that you have to develop this to say, guys, we have to go through changes because that's the only way to grow. If we stay at the same level, the competition is going to take over, and next thing you know, you're no longer delivering and the experience that your customers expect of you, and you start falling behind.
Exactly. And part of the process and something else that we talk quite a bit about is data readiness is really the term. Product and availability and just updates, but that it's even further than your catalog and the products themselves. It's your third-party providers and technology partners. It's something that that we're really keen on when we're working with clients is to understand, and the discovery factor is critical. I'll repeat that many times. You had extensions maybe that you were using or providers in the past, and if you're going to re-platform in general, you need to understand and be able to look at and reach out to those partners that you're working with to make sure that Magento, it'll fit and the extension will work, or if not, there might be some customizations in there. Some typical tools that, because you have multiple different people working in different areas, they have a tool. They don't necessarily speak to each other a lot of times, but in this, we're trying to make this seamless circle. You have your email campaign and marketing tools. You have options for product reviews that tie in with social media, Facebook, Instagram.
All departments are affected. I mean, it's a company initiative. It's not an e-commerce initiative or technology only. It's really a company-wide initiative that has to be planned out properly.
And those tools, be it support desk, from the back end, how they interact with customers, to the
logistics,
just the analytics, the tools, anything that goes along with that. Logistics is critical, and it's something that we spend quite a bit of time on, is understanding that flow of, from a shipment perspective. Checkout fraud protection in general, that's sometimes companies weren't necessarily looking at that. They should definitely be reviewing that. And then tax management, depending on where you are in the States, can get very interesting. And so we work with some really good providers and partners that can help you seamlessly, that we know that they work with Magento too, and they take a lot of stress. It's really, at the end of the day, is to take the stress off your team. In the end, there's a cost factor to migrating. Overall, if you think of it as investing in growth, typically what we're seeing, clients are reporting an over 150 increase, percentage points as far as revenue since migrating. And that's huge when you really break it down. Sure. But again, to kind of circle back to that, Magento 2 is a different framework than Magento 1. So it's not a question of just going to be able to port over, press a button and you port it over. It's a new framework. There will be, existing functionalities. You might have had a custom build. You might have had a custom feature that, you might have to rebuild in a sense. And, the research that goes along with that is, do you need that feature? Is it critical to your business? Then you have to plan for that, because it will have to be recoded, is the simplest way to do that, and if you have these customized extensions on top of that, then you're looking at, does that extension, that provider may not even exist anymore. That's the other. Some of this is some things that we got to look at. We'll look at it as a quick, accelerated type rollout, or we have a very complex migration, lots of updates to the layouts, to the theme itself, but connecting into your legacy ERPs. Speak to a lot of clients, and some of these things were done via Excel and uploads, and and capabilities are now there so that you can seamlessly interact from a digital standpoint. So the business logic needs to change a lot of times, but the upgrade itself, really look at your partners, look at and it's an opportunity to evolve the software.
Sure.
And pick the different providers.
You're changing the foundation of your digital commerce channel. Might as well evaluate all the tools, because I feel that sometimes retailers or brands in general, companies, are not evolving mainly because they're stuck to a specific technology that does not allow them to grow. And eventually all their decisions are limited by this technology. Whereas now, if you're thinking about migrating to Magento 2 or considering Magento 2 as your e-commerce platform, then it's a great opportunity for you to reassess all of your technology stack.
Mhm.
And I think that from my experience with Magento 2, I think that not enough time is put into, from the client side, not enough time is put into researching or evaluating other technologies and anticipating some of the needs when it comes to integrations.
Yep.
It's sometimes, the migration can cost a specific amount of money to deploy, but guess what? You may save tens of thousands of dollars on a specific process that's being handled by your team that could have been resolved by you simply upgrading to the platform. So, but that requires, like you mentioned, planning and taking these things into consideration through the whole process. And Magento 2, which I want to move to the last session, the last question is, there are many platforms out there. We know that. Whether you want full control, I mean, we're not going to name the platforms. You guys know what they are. But one thing I like is if you want control over your digital commerce platform, Magento is a great solution for that. But with everything, they're going to give you full control, but at the same time, you have to make sure you're ready for this type of control. And you need to have some things in place that will help you support through these initiatives. Now, I want to end it off with asking you, Brian, what are 4 tips to a successful Magento 2 migration? If we were to summarize everything we talked about today, what are 4 things that attendees should take into consideration if they're considering a migration or going towards Magento 2?
Underlying is knowledge is king, right? Do the research upfront. A lot of, we've kind of circled around it quite a bit. There's different flavors of the software that's out there. So picking the right version for your needs, and then looking at, the overall infrastructure, looking at ways that this is the opportunity that you can really streamline it. But, from an internal resource for training, these are things that you really need to factor into the timeline. And I can't stress that enough, is that, your decisions up front are going to impact the evolution down the road as far as when you launch, feature set, et cetera. A lot of clients are moved too quickly as well. It's really a consideration of, what are the best options, and you can always, improve and evolve. And it's something that, that we speak about regularly. You're not stuck, and that's something that, if we're looking at it right now, we can improve and grow on top of that. But again, it's like knowledge, understanding the needs that you have currently and the feature set and getting that buy-in. If we also want to talk about just overall data structure, this is an opportunity. One of the pitfalls that we run into a lot of times with clients is their data has not been updated. It's not been, successfully, I'm going to call it realigned from a categorization standpoint. They're missing attributes. That's critical for knowledge for your clients. If you see an increased impact from just a product that has 3 attributes versus a product that has 10. And, being able to take that information, upgrade it, assign it, and then have the teams, from a checks and balances, a lot of times this is a great way to, put in the workflows of, if a product doesn't have 10 features or items or attributes, it won't go up on the website.
This is the time to fix it up.
This is the time. So, the other thing that's, we talked a little bit about is, rules, fulfillment rules. How are you shipping? How are you providing product? It could be, logistics on the back end would be shipping providers, or, the turnaround time, showing and expressing to the clients of, when they're going to get their product. As we have all seen, shipping is king as well for deliverability, but it's rules, it returns as well. We've seen some real impact of, clients that have actually put a lot more information up to their clients about how to work with them. At the end of the day, it's always about the records of truth, right? How the contact information is in the system. How do you interact with your clients? And then the order data is another factor. That's something, how much legacy data do you really need to bring over? We typically, if you need 10 years of data up on the system, how relevant is that? This is something that we look at. It's, this will curb, in a sense, data portability. But
like your Gmail inbox, do you need the 10,000 emails sitting in there?
I think, my real goal for this is about centralizing your data. And especially if you're multi-channel, it's
quality
always
data.
It's going to be your record of truth. if this product is listed here, will it look the same across the board? And from a marketability standpoint, a merchandising standpoint, that was, we see this a lot with customers and clients where, one team has the same file and then it's over here on a drive and it's over here. So centralizing that data, getting that data to be able to sync with the system and update is critical. And that just flows better. It just makes life a lot easier all around. The other thing that I definitely, I want to be sure, SEO is something that we talk about a lot. Redirects, especially if you've had your site up for a really long time, put the time and effort in to be able to make sure that you can get people to the new site. Market that new site. There's going to be a lot of legacy data out there in general. I think, something, as we're talking about all these moving different parts, set the expectation for a most viable product. I think that's critical, because if you have this, and this ties in with the other thing that we like to get is, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. You need a main point of contact that's going to be that team member that bridges all the different teams together. And so you have a unified front. So, there's going to be must-haves and things that you need to launch with, but, there needs to be a team synergy from our side to your team. We're partners in this. If you have 50,000 requests, you're never going to launch your website. So if you expect to have a timeline, you're looking at scope creep is the expression a lot of people like to use. It can blow out the feature set. Do you necessarily need to have that? If you do, then it's a reassessment across the board, but everybody gets buy-in. And, from that side of things, you're going to launch the website with the best product in the time frame and the budget that you're looking to do. And
set expectations on both sides, right? It's
exactly.
Really internally and externally with all your partners, your customers, and also people within the company.
Yeah. Your goal is to mitigate risk, really, at the end of the day. It's to make sure that the team is really on board with what they're going to market with. And again, it's build, sync, and grow. Really, it's really about that. It's extending and scaling the platform. Sometimes things come up, schedules will get changed, and then that impacts itself down the road. So, we always want to be aware of that. And that's if we're talking about partnerships, I can't stress enough, and I see that you have it up there, finding a good partner. It's really not just about experience, that's critical, but it's a culture fit as well. And the team being able to work together, it's, some of these projects can go 3 months, or some of these projects can go 1.5 years, depending on the size.
When you say good partner, you're talking about finding a good agency partner to help you, support you in Magento.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. From that perspective, you need the team that's going to be there to support you, that has the experience, that has done this, and it's really, I can't stress that enough. If you have many aspects you're looking at, our role is really to help guide you, make those decisions. And that's why, we're working together. There's decisions that we make up front that impact down the road, and that maybe not necessarily clear sometimes in a sense, but, when we've explained it thoroughly, we understand that this is reason why we need this now is because it impacts multiple different facets of your site. Project management, I cannot stress that enough, planning, being transparent. That's something, that we really strive for, and documentation is sharing information. The more information you can share with your clients and your team members, the better decision-making process is going to be. And it just doesn't go from that point. Once you've launched your website, can they support the website? You really should be looking at that as from a maintenance perspective. There will be new security factors. There will be new patches that need to be done. There will be Magento updates. It's the planning, the planification that goes along with that, not to impact, not to have any site delays. But overall, it's that trust. And the last thing I'll say to that is discovery is key. If we can really kind of hammer out, in the agile type world, we have an idea of the feature, it grows and it builds, but we still need to have an idea of what the end goal is going to be. And overall, Magento, in general, will benefit your team and outweigh any risks from migrating from Magento 1 to Magento 2.
And considering I came from the client side. I mean, that's where most of my time was spent in e-commerce on the client side, and only recently I'm part of the site. And when you mentioned these 4 tips, they resonate. This is the exact approach I've went through every time I decided to migrate or upgrade our platforms. But one thing I like about the number 4 about finding a good partner right now, from what I'm seeing, is sometimes people think that, you know what, let me just redesign the website and launch. Well, that's part of your growth. There is a lot more coming, a lot more that needs to be considered going forward after you have this platform, just like you mentioned, it's updating certain experiences based on what you see is happening on the website. I mean, consumers' behaviors are changing. You have to always adapt to these changes. But then when you think about growth, it's the type of traffic you're sending, your marketing initiatives, your partnerships, all of these things have to ensure that your website is going to meet the needs of those other areas of your business. So you upgraded the website, but now it's time to take it to the next level by changing the way you do things when it comes to driving traffic, generating awareness, conversions, you name it. So digital marketing plays a huge role. And I believe that finding the right partner that has a good grasp of all of these initiatives, they're not looking at it from only a development perspective. They're not just coming in to develop the website. We have a bunch of programmers. That's not the right approach. It's really, you have to, and to your point, the discovery stage is critical. You put in the right people to understand your business, your goals, your challenges. And at the end of the day, this is a long-term partnership. You can't just go to a freelance developer to launch the website for you and that's it, that's all. There's a lot of things that have to be taken into consideration, especially if you need to take your business to that level that you expect it to be at. So really, again, really appreciate your time. So I know that we're pressed on time, but Brian, we've spoken about this before. I think the best approach to this, if people have questions or they're interested in migrating to Magento 2 or considering Magento 2, it's best that they get in touch with you directly because, I mean, every business is different, their needs are different, and it's not just a matter of saying, it's a 5-minute call. The discussion could last a very long time, and I think that's the best approach. Your contact information is right there. Would you like to add anything to this?
No, please, by all means. I'm always happy to have conversations, and this is something that we do, and we've had a lot of success. And the end goal is to help you and your evolution of your website and make it as seamless as possible, and get you increase revenue at the end of the day as seamless as possible.
And you know what? That smile on your face right there just makes me want to enjoy that migration. So I love that picture. So. Geneviève, it's all yours now. The contact information is right there for anyone who wants to get in touch with Brian, and we'll take it. So Geneviève.
So thank you, Brian. Thank you, Alaa. It was really, really insightful. We can really understand the importance of migrating and all the possibilities that Magento 2 offers as well to your e-commerce store. So you can follow us, Le Site, on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're really active. So you can follow us and stay up to date too for our company news, e-commerce, latest information, and future webinars. So we will send you the recording of this presentation, and see you next time. Have a nice day.
Is there a survey after they disconnect?
Yes, there's a survey, like I mentioned in the beginning. So I'm just going to re-mention it again. If you want to answer the survey, that would be really helpful so we can create great webinars for you.
Excellent.
Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
Thanks a lot. Take care, guys. Bye.